Men, women, what more is there to say? It's as if the only thing in this world that actually matters is one's gender identity, or at least how they're perceived by others. Whether you're male or you're female, the point is that such a fact is all that matters about you. Hey, that's not my opinion, or even my belief about what should be. I'm just describing what is. In the grand scheme of things, other traits that a person possesses, their race, their ethnicity, which country they reside in, their religious convictions, their accent, the language they speak, their political beliefs, their sexual proclivities, their height, their weight, their overall physical attractiveness, the sound of their voice, none of them matter compared to their gender. Male or female, the first fact that is acknowledged about a person, the first thing that springs to mind, the most monumental distinction. It is a separator, a way of dividing the world into two neat categories. Whether one falls into one category or the other, it determines their whole history, their childhood, their teenage, their adulthood. Even conditions of the grave are affected. Gender still matters there. Every single interaction a person has with another, every single sentence uttered, every impression they have of themselves and of others, how they're treated by others, how they treat others, it is all entirely determined by the status of femaleness or of maleness. Some animal species, due to sexual dimorphism, have received conflicting reports from scientists. Turns out, many researchers assumed that members from one sex were of an entirely separate species from members of the other sex. The female looked so different from that of the male, people thought they just had to be from a different species. Well, socially and psychologically, and really in terms of everything related to behavior, human males and females are even more different. It's often said as a half-joking phrase that men are from Mars, women are from Venus, as if we're literally aliens to one another. Maybe not technically, but effectively speaking, we always have been. Throughout all of history, from the Paleolithic era to the modern world, the difference between male and female has always taken first place. While I would be a fool, and by extension a faggot, to suggest that racial tensions haven't played, and don't continue to play, instrumental importance in the structuring and conditioning of the world. That they have a very intense impact, it still altogether only represents a tiny fraction of the emphasis placed on gender. People of different races don't need to change the way they interact with one another. They don't focus intensely on every word said, as though it'd somehow be different if a person of another race uttered it. It doesn't usually deter friendships, and it seems to be very historically conditional and confined more to certain spaces and times than possessing the universality gender has. The fact that I'm male means everything, not just to me, but to everyone, whether they're intellectually honest enough to admit the glaringly obvious, or too homosexual to face the facts. My life would not only be so different if I were born female, it wouldn't even be my life. Not to any recognizable degree. Sure, maybe we'd share a few facial features, even then not to the full degree, but that's about the limit to that train. A female me wouldn't be me, nothing like me at all. The importance of someone's gender has been the only consistent, identifiable element from the dawn of time that has made everything different. Every single talk we have with another person, how we feel around them, how we feel about them, our whole perception of them. No romantic nor sexual relationship, ever in time, hasn't been entirely, fully unaffected by the reality that is gender. The roles men and women play are so separate, so delicate, and so foreign to one another, it can't be reasonably contrasted to other behavioral tendencies observed between genetic populations, like racial collectives or individuals with extreme disabilities. Every single coupleship has been conditioned, in every single moment of its existence, by the phenomenon of gender. Both opposite sex and same-sex relationships are like this, with one no less affected than the other. The gender identity of one's partner is more important than any other single trait they could even theoretically possess. And yes, this goes for bisexual people too. Is this a woman? Or is this a man? Have been the only important, actually significant questions when identifying the remainder of traits within a person. Once you know whether they're a woman or man, everything else is almost automatically revealed. And then, upon even the most cursory of investigations, every last detail springs forward. The most difficult obstacle for even attempting to get along with another person is their gender. Their gender determines whether they'll be allowed in the presence of certain individuals. It determines whether they'll apply for a certain occupation or go for another job instead. It determines their self-worth, their value to others, and what prefixes and titles can be bestowed upon them. Especially in reference to their field of work, we know this. Everything, every last single thing would be different if I were a woman saying this very thing. Your perception of me, my perception of myself, the very totality of it all, representative of every last square inch of my soul. Being a man is so easy to forget just how monumental the distinction between men and women is, even though very little of it has anything to do with actual biology. This can occur even while practicing treating people differently based upon their gender. If you were to hypothetically treat men and women the same, not differently, you'd be seen as a weirdo, some sort of eccentric mess, not having any fundamental grasp upon how this planet operates. Sort of like a 6-year-old infant, although even babies that young almost always have some understanding of the importance between male and female infants. Culture and ancestry are just microscopic drops of water in the great ocean that gender has formed. It's rude to treat people of other races differently, even if it's not negatively, but to treat women and men the same, that is to forget you're living on planet Earth. Sometimes I wake up in a cold sweat, looking at myself and registering once again who I am, unbelievably relieved. It turns out I'm still male. Can't be happier to be a man, meaning to be me.